All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Scott
Hey
Luton, Greg
there.
White back with you here on Supply Chain Now with our live stream. Today's show, we've got a great conversation teed up. We're going to be speaking with a couple of supply chain and healthcare thought leaders. They're going to be weighing in on a variety of things, including how new innovation and collaboration is helping the fight against COVID-19, ways that you, our listeners, our audience, can help and chip in and get involved. And finally, how about some good news? Raise your hand if you need some good news, right? We all need some good news. There we go. And you're going to hear some good news here today on Supply Chain Now. So thanks for joining us. Quick programming note before we get started. If you enjoy our live stream episodes, check out our podcast. Today we published an outstanding podcast featuring the one and only Kevin L. Jackson with Source Connect. You can check that out and subscribe wherever you get your podcast from. Okay, so I want to welcome in my esteemed, fearless co-host, Greg White, serial supply chain tech entrepreneur and trusted advisor. Greg, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited about this. I think I'm more excited than Mary Kate is.
You can't be.
No, I think this is great. First of all, two great initiatives. We're going to talk a little bit about what everyone's going through right now, and we're going to talk a little bit about what's to come, at least what we think is to come. And as you said, some good news, some great initiatives that are, changing lives. So I'm excited about that.
We are too. And with no further ado, as I bring up our LinkedIn comments. All right. So let's introduce our guests. We've got Mary Kate Love, Program Director for Point A Hub for Supply Chain Innovation. Good afternoon, Mary Kate.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me back.
Great to have you back. And we also have one of your newest best friends, Priya Bathija, Vice President for Strategic Initiatives at the American Hospital Association. Priya, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me. You
bet. And Priya is dialed in from Chicago, right?
Yes, correct. The Windy City.
That's right. So, before we get into all the content we've got teed up, we want to give our audience the opportunity to connect and learn a little bit more about each of you. So, Mary Kate, you lead off. Tell us more about yourself.
All right. Yeah. So again, thanks guys for having me back. My name is Mary Kate Love, and I'm working at Point A, which is a wholly owned innovation center by Georgia Pacific. We're based down here in Atlanta. I'm originally from Chicago, and most of my career has been in collaborative innovation. So really bringing people together to solve large, complex problems. So you can guess how busy I've been in the last few weeks thinking about this large, complex problem we're all now facing.
Huge. But the good news is we're facing it together. We're seeing incredible levels of creative collaboration and innovation taking place. We'll touch on some of that here momentarily. Hey, Priya, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so my name, I'm Vice President of Strategic Initiatives at the American Hospital Association. And there, my biggest job is leading what we call the Value Initiative, which is an effort to help hospitals implement more value-based strategies that would lower cost, improve outcomes, and enhance the patient experience. During this COVID pandemic, however, my job is to lead our effort called the 100 Million Mask Challenge, which I know we're going to talk about later. Prior to being at the AHA, I have about 10 years of legal experience in both law firm and hospital setting. So I kind of bring that legal background to everything I do, and also have some policy experience with the American Hospital Association as well.
Wow. Well, I couldn't imagine having a better spokesperson here for this conversation between Mary Kate and Priya. We got our bases covered, right, Greg?
Yeah, we do. I mean, we're talking about supply chain and we're talking about healthcare all the time, it seems like. So That's right. Great to have you two leaders with us. I'd love to start by talking a little bit about what you're seeing. And Priya, let's start with you.
Yeah.
What you're seeing as the impact of the pandemic right now.
Yeah, so we're definitely seeing a shortage of PPE for our healthcare workforce on the front lines. Everyone has heard that in the news. You can't look at Twitter without seeing that. It is a real challenge. And it is a challenge that's hitting our frontline healthcare workers, who are our most valuable resource in sort of stopping the coronavirus from spreading further. Our healthcare workers, as a result of this, are, worried about themselves, how to protect their families, how to live their day-to-day lives in light of this shortage. And there's a lot of reasons behind the shortage. One of the primary reasons is that a lot of this PPE is produced in China. And of course, China faced the COVID-19 pandemic before us. And so they're just now ramping up factories and getting back to normal manufacturing and production. Another piece is that, because we were delayed in getting true testing for COVID, all of our healthcare providers had to treat every patient as if they had COVID-19. And so they were required to use full PPE, which resulted in them going through it a lot faster. So those are some of the challenges that led to the shortage that we're in now. But the exciting thing, and I know we're going to talk a lot about this, is, everyone is coming together to help get through this shortage.
So we know that sourcing has been a big challenge for everyone. Can you give us some insight into what you've seen there? Maybe even an example,
Yeah, so we've seen a lot of things related to sourcing. We've seen a lot of manufacturers come forward that haven't typically provided healthcare products. And they're willing to sort of change over their lines and start making PPE. We've seen a lot of partnerships between local hospitals with manufacturers that are in the same community. So for example, in Providence Hospital in Washington State was able to come together with Cast Tailored, which is a furniture manufacturing company. And they were able to quickly prototype in 48 hours a design for a surgical mask and for a shield. And within 72 hours, Cast Tailored was able to begin production on those products of PPE for the hospital. And it's been such a success that now Nordstrom has joined in that effort with their seamstresses. And it's just been really exciting to see. And that's just one example. We're seeing it all across the country.
So, Mary Kate, I know you work with a lot of companies in industry, right, as well as the companies, and we'll talk a little bit more about Point A and those relationships, but have you seen any of these kind of scenarios?
Yeah, I was, Priya, when you were talking about sourcing, I was thinking about what an underestimated kind of task to take that on. I think, we all in our day-to-day lives think that buying and purchasing is really easy. I click something on Amazon and it gets delivered in 2 days, right? But when you're thinking about these large companies that are buying, Georgia Pacific, for example, spends billions each year in purchasing raw materials. We have over 1,000 employees that are focused on just sourcing, right? So understanding all the nuances that go into vetting a supplier, knowing who to buy from, can you receive that material? We're seeing companies like Georgia Pacific and other companies who have a ton of experience in sourcing step up to the plate and say, hey, I'll source this material that you need to make masks and I'll buy it and I'll get it to you. Or, hey, I know you were using this raw material for your mask or your other PPE. What about substituting this? Will that work? So that sourcing is just maybe not something that the average person is thinking about, but it's really rising to the forefront of people who have experience in sourcing are like really hugely helpful in this pandemic if they could leverage their knowledge and their buyers to get materials over to the United States.
Yeah.
I think Georgia Pacific is a really good example because they were at the forefront of shortages.
Oh my goodness,
was in short supply, right?
Yeah.
And we got a really good and strong example of supply chain resiliency from how fast Georgia Pacific and the other makers got product back to the retail shelves after what can only be described as panic buying, we use the word unprecedented a lot right now, but unprecedented, unexpected, and illogical demand.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's, when your products, GP's products are in 60% of households and 40% of businesses, and when you're supplying to that many different places, having a really resilient supply chain and our factories just producing at a level that I don't even know if it's ever been done before to keep up with this, where, it might be out of panic, and most of it is out of panic, but we've got to keep up with that demand. And it has been really cool to see, just like you said, GP and other companies rise to meet that demand. And, I hope people feel this kind of sense of pride in the supply chain, being able to keep up with that, right? That's really cool to see.
So, hey, real quick, want to give a shout out to some of the folks that are listening with us here, Kyle and Patrick and Jack and Stephen Smitley, one of we're huge fans of Stephen and his music and all of his good work. And I miss Jameen, Greg, which is one of our social media buddies. He's been posting. Yes,
this is all for him.
Kansas City Chiefs fan. So, Mary Kate, as we wrap on this first segment here, I love some of the thoughts you were just sharing. We have seen automotive companies start making ventilators. We've seen breweries and moonshine distilleries right here in Georgia, pivot and find ways of making hand sanitizer. It is amazing to see how much very practical and real innovation is taking place during these really challenging times, right?
Yeah, it's really, innovation during difficult times is really something special to see. And, some of the world's greatest inventions happened during hard times. Like the first programmable computer was made in World War II. I read all these different things that were made throughout the Great Depression, like Scrabble, right? That's just kind of a fun game that was made, just all these random things, right? But I keep waking up every day and being reminded of how connected we all are, for good reasons and bad, right? I'm seeing the spread of the disease reminding me how connected we are. But I'm encouraged by remembering this connection with others, because when people connect and innovate together and create new things to solve problems, that's when the true innovations happen that can really change the world. So, really these networks coming together, we should feel really excited about what's to come.
Great point. All right. So one more quick shout out to the folks that are tuned in. The produce industry, the food industry in general, has gone through quite an upheaval here lately. The produce, some of y'all may have seen the stories written about the challenges the produce industry is facing. We've got Patrick Kelly, who runs the Produce Industry podcast, tuned in. So I bet he's talking a lot around some of the challenges that industry faces. So let's keep driving. We have touched on the innovation that we're seeing in very practical terms. Right now, I'm not sure about what y'all are seeing and what you're feeling and what your families and your colleagues are looking for, but I know there's a lot of folks looking for good news, some uplifting stories. We've touched on some of those already based on what companies are doing, what our healthcare workers are doing, what our supply chain folks are doing. I, for one, am so proud to play a small little role in the manufacturing and supply chain industry, to see what the workforce is doing to confront this huge global threat and fight back, running out of the corner to get into the fight. There's so many great stories, so many brave people that are doing big things right now. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the silver linings here is consumers are learning all about what global supply chains do, and that's a great thing. So in that vein of sharing good news, let's deliver here. Mary Kate, Greg, we've got the founder, Greg, drum roll please. We have the founder of National Supply Chain Day right here on Supply Chain Now. So Mary Kate, tell us the story. And I can't believe we're in 2020 and just now celebrating this.
We're celebrating the first National Supply Chain Day on April 29th. It's not maybe how we pictured celebrating the first National Supply Chain Day, virtually separate from each other, but albeit probably one of the most pressing topics that we've been talking about the past few weeks. And, supply chain is so important. It's literally how the world connects. And, if you hadn't felt the effects of supply chain before, you certainly feel it now. So we're super excited at Point A to lead National Supply Chain Day. Honestly, the story behind National Supply Chain Day is I was super inspired by National Manufacturing Day. That happens every year. I think it's in October, where manufacturers across the United States get together and really educate people about the future of manufacturing, what technologies are being harnessed, what jobs in manufacturing are out there, and needing something similar for supply chain is an absolute need. And this became even more apparent to me when Greg gave me these awesome stats. Greg, you got to give your little spiel about how many people are in supply chain, because it's unbelievable.
Yeah, it is unbelievable, because if you think about it, supply chain has the fourth largest fan base of any sport on the planet, I should say. There are 44 million supply chain professionals just in the United States. That's 37% of the workforce. And by the way, that includes people in manufacturing, in retail, in distribution, in transportation, in technology. I almost forgot that one. Can you believe that? And if you extrapolate that same number, the number of, or the percentage of people in the workforce, that's over 1 billion people in the supply chain workforce around the planet. So that means that supply chain is the fourth most popular sport in the world, behind only soccer, cricket, and field hockey. So if we were a sport, we would be more popular than the NFL.
That's wild.
We need our own network.
So, hey, that's
we
not
got it.
there.
What
We
am
can
I
jump
saying?
on
That's what this is.
Real quick aside, Pratik on Facebook was looking for some ideas for reducing inventory if given some of the scenarios. Pratik, join us tomorrow at 3 p.m.
Right.
Eastern time for a great live stream with Barrison and some of our other friends that are inventory experts. That's right.
Phil Idison and Paul Noble going to join us tomorrow, and we're going to talk specifically. Sorry to interrupt, ladies, but we're going to talk specifically about how companies can generate cash, improve planning, and improve execution during this time. As Mary Kate was talking about, necessity is the mother of invention, right?
That's right.
And what could be more necessary than those things right now?
So,
and Barrison is a Point A member, so
that's right.
just had to give that shout out there.
We'll have you on tomorrow as well.
There we go.
And Paul Noble is an All-American high school basketball player and one heck of a shooting guard. And so Andy knows all about supply chain. So join us at 3 p.m. tomorrow, Pratik. All right, so what we want to do is, Mary Kate, share a little bit about what's going to take place on April 29th, National Supply Chain Day. And then we're going to really save the bulk of our time here today to talk about some of the incredible work that Mary Kate and Priya and their organizations and members of the community are doing to fight back against COVID-19.
Awesome. Yeah. So a little bit more about National Supply Chain Day. We've inside of our Point A ecosystem, which, by the way, this virtual event is open to anyone and everyone. But inside of our Point A ecosystem, we created a platform where our members could share and post either COVID-19 related supply chain problems or COVID-19 related solutions. So what we've seen is people kind of post in there. They can be really small things, right? Like we had an example of one of our members was having a problem with delivering and signing to receive deliveries. And so, people didn't want to share machines or hand pens back and forth in the same way that we have in the past. And we would have never thought that this would be a problem, right? So they came up with kind of an add-on to their ERP system that automatically updated the person receiving and delivering the device, where they could both accept on their own devices. So little things like that, people have already figured out and they're happy to share. They want other companies to be as resilient as possible. That's what this day is all about. Our original plans were a little bit different, but we're going to be focusing on sharing these supply chain solutions and some kind of bringing forward some problems that still need solving. So definitely encourage you to join that if you can, and we'll be highlighting a few more examples and going a bit more in depth with those members, those corporations, large and small, that are implementing these solutions. What we were really supposed to do was open up the Point A Innovation Center that's going to be at Georgia Pacific, but it will be ready to go when we can all physically get together again.
Absolutely. We're really excited about that. And, we're going to be breaking through soon enough. Brighter days lie ahead. And we're all, can you imagine the party we're going to throw when we beat
my gosh.
It's
going to be insane.
It will be. All right. So, Greg, I know now we want to kind of dive into what Priya and the American Hospital Association and how they're collaborating with Point A, right? Some of the specific initiatives.
Yeah. So particularly, I'd like to start with how Point A and American Hospital Association are collaborating together. And I'll let you all talk about that topic. Priya, you want to start us off?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll start with some background on our 100 million mask challenge that we launched 2 weeks ago now at the AHA. And this challenge actually came out of the work that I mentioned that was done between Providence and CAS in Seattle, Washington. Providence put out this national call to the community, a local call to the community and to individuals, businesses, manufacturers that were in their region and said, help us. We need help with PPE. And these are some ways that you can help. And that's how CAS stepped up and started manufacturing surgical masks and shields. About a week and a half into Providence's 100 million mask challenge, they approached the AHA and said, can you take this on at a national level? Because we really believe that other communities can benefit from what we've learned in Washington State. And so they were kind enough to give us the specs and the designs that they came up with at Providence so that we could use that as a starting point to take it as a national challenge. So we started there, and we became a national call to action to help increase production and supply of PPE nationwide. We started by sharing the specs that were given to us by Providence and CAS Tailored. We've now expanded, and we have specs for much more than masks and shields. We even have specs for how to make hand sanitizer. And really our goal is to bring together hospitals that need PPE with manufacturers that can provide that PPE, whether that is, changing over lines and starting to manufacture something new, or if it's other manufacturers that may be new to the healthcare supply chain, but have availability of PPE. So we're doing a number of things to make those connections. But really the idea behind sharing the specs, sharing Providence and CAS Tailored story and experience is to allow manufacturers that want to come and provide these services to their local hospital or other hospitals around the country. It really sort of closes the gap because everyone doesn't have to start from scratch with new designs and new fabrics and sort of doing that innovation on their own. We're able to provide that as a starting point for them.
So, Priya, we've had for whatever it's worth, we've had a couple of companies that we're aware of either distributing or finding new sources or whatever. So one is a company, iRemedy.
Yep.
I think they're based in Orlando, Florida, somewhere. And the other is Vector Global Logistics. And they don't even make product, but they had such a hue and cry from their logistics customers to try and help them find sources that Enrique at Vector sent some folks around to try and do that. And I think they found some sourcing offshore as well as onshore. So we'll connect you with them.
Yeah, that would be great. And another thing that I didn't mention that we're doing for our hospitals and health systems around the country is as you can imagine, they are getting emails from anyone and everyone saying we have X number of N95 masks available, X number of gowns. And so through one of our professional membership groups at the AHA, its short form is ARM. It stands for Advancing Healthcare Through Supply Chain Excellence, but I'll just call it ARM because it's a lot easier. But ARM is, vetting the suppliers, and they're working with VendorMate to go through a vetting process. So our hospitals don't have to do that, right? And it saves them the step of wondering if these manufacturers that are approaching them are safe people to be working with.
Yeah,
and I can't underscore enough how important that is, regrettably, right? Like this is so important to get people that know how to vet suppliers. There's so much fraudulent activity, just things that you don't want to, get involved in. So that is just so awesome and such a great organization to get connected to if you need the help.
Sure. There's a lot of, Greg, we've touched on this probably in a couple different live streams and recent podcasts. There's a ton of vetting and re-vetting and triple vetting in established global supply chains, much less new supply chains, essentially, which are forming to address this need.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you think of quality and you think of safety, right? Because if we're not using vetted partners, it could actually make the situation a lot worse. So it's really important to be vetting our global supply chains right now.
Yep. Agreed.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear those stories. I mean, code words and, special keys and things like that. And on both ends, right? The suppliers vetting the companies that desire to source from them and vice versa. So it's a really interesting time. There are some good guidelines, and I think that ARM can help folks with that. So,
real quick, if I can weigh in, I know we'll tackle contact information at the end. And by the way, tip of the hat to these two professionals right here. You know that they're involved in supply chain because we have covered a lot of ground and we're only less than 30 minutes in. So, very efficient. Let's make sure, folks, right now that going back to the 100millionmasks.org, you can jump in at that URL that Greg's got on his backboard there and get started right away helping the effort, right, Priya?
Yeah, absolutely. And so when you go to 100millionmasks.org, we have three different personas, we're calling them. We have a page that talks about how individuals can get involved and help, a page that talks about how hospitals can get involved, and one for manufacturers. And we talked a little bit about manufacturers and hospitals and how we are encouraging them to come together and giving them the resources that they need to do that. But from an individual perspective, there are a lot of individuals who want to help. They're at home, they're working from home. They feel like they have time to give back. They have resources to give back. And so we set forth a lot of ways that they can do that. And the primary way is to connect with their local hospital or health system to see what they need, because every hospital around the country needs something different right now. No one has the perfect level of PPE in every area. They are looking for things outside of PPE. For example, hand sanitizer, wipes. Those continue to be a challenge for hospitals to get a hold of, just like they're a challenge for individuals around the country to get a hold of. And so we urge people to check their hospital websites, figure out what your hospital needs and how you can get it. Another popular way that people are showing support is by sewing community masks. And so many hospitals, as well as other community-based organizations, are seeking those masks because they need them for added protection. And so we have specs and designs for how sewers can sew those masks if that's how they want to participate. And the last thing I'll mention on that individual page is that we have, now we have a place where individuals can donate money that will then go to supporting hospitals, and that's called our Protect the Heroes campaign. And there's information on our 100 Million Mask page about how individuals can make donations and if that's the way they want to contribute.
Yeah, real quick, we got to love on these healthcare workers that are truly on the front lines, putting themselves at danger to fight back against this pandemic. In our family, my mom's a retired nurse. My aunt is a retired ER and hospital nurse. My wife's Aunt Robin is at Emory, been there for 30 years and have faced all kinds of pandemics. And because of those connections and because of the sense of purpose, my wife has sewn 300 masks so far.
That
We'll
is
go
amazing.
It is mind-boggling because I'm not sure where she
Unbelievable.
finds the time, but they go over, according to some of those guidelines, Priya, you were just sharing. She did her homework based on great resources like your organization and others are offering. And they're washable, and they go over N95 mask, and it lengthens the lifespan of the N95 masks that we have on hand in these healthcare sites. So so many folks have gotten behind it, but it has been compelling and intriguing to hear from healthcare folks on the front lines across the country as they kind of share a little bit of feedback of what they're facing. So we got to get behind them. We've got to support these efforts that AHA and Point A are helping to make happen, and find a place that, regardless of how you can help or how little time or resources you might have, you give from what you have, and you just got to find a way to move the needle.
Yeah, and that's why, AHA, I've loved the approach of AHA is so good at thinking about the national kind of the whole picture, right? But also you guys have a great regional focus, which like Scott, that's a great example of you need regional focus in this as well. And, every hospital is a little bit different in terms of their needs and how they buy and how they source, or they're probably a lot different, very different, right? So don't be, I think we're all used to being like, well, gosh, we want everything figured out and this just to be one clean approach for everything. Don't feel like you can't make a difference at the regional level. And if you're, working the phones to get 200 masks for a hospital for one day, that's great. And so is a national effort like AHA's. We need both. So I'm really excited to hear Amanda, and I'm not surprised, Scott, that Amanda's already made 300 masks. That's pretty amazing.
Well, and Amanda would not. She's going to kill me for even mentioning this. She's always behind the scenes, and that's where she likes to be. But there's so many people like that that are getting involved and figuring out how to help. And God bless them all. So Priya, I know Priya and Mary Kate and Greg, I know we're kind of taking some right turns and left turns here, but what else?
It's the new normal.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think that's going back. That's what I meant to say. Going back to what Mary Kate mentioned a second ago. These are very unique times. It's not like we can look at the last 10 times that things have been like this for a proven playbook and proven best practices. There's so many elements of this landscape right now that we're facing that we haven't seen before.
Right.
So to your point, Mary Kate, which is one of the reasons why it is even far beyond tip standard complexity that you find in healthcare and supply chain. So, but what else, when you think about some of the gaps y'all been identifying, some of the problems you've been working on, or some of the ideas, what else is out there that y'all have been working on thus far?
Do you want me to go, Priya, and then lead you into how we connected? So
sounds good.
One of the gaps, and this is so funny how, again, the power of connected networks, right? One of the gaps, as Point A was thinking about all of our different members and some of the supply chain problems we're seeing and helping solve, we were like, we're not in a place to start a national effort, right? But we see there's a lot of resources out there, or some resources out there with specs, people that can help you source, people that can help you understand how to make the materials, and then working on delivering, right? The supply chain, the delivering of the materials. But there was this tiny small gap that people that typically work with Point A or are in the innovation ecosystem kept bringing up. And it was this, well, God, I just heard about a manufacturer who just shut down production. And why are they shutting down production when all we need is PPE? And, what's going on? And how can I help? How can I help? How can I help? And I was explaining this frustration to actually my best friend, Kara, who works at American Hospital Association. And she was like, oh, wait, you've got to talk to my colleague Priya here, who's running this 100 million mask. So that's how Priya and I were connected. And it was this really interesting model of, not Point A, not trying to reinvent the wheel. 100 million mask has so many great resources and is up and running in a crazy short amount of time. Hats off to you guys for that. And our little gap of having this community of people that have technical background and are innovators and just really want to solve problems, filled this need of, hey, if there's a manufacturer that's faced with either shutting down or figuring out how to flip to make PPE, can we have people that have technical experience volunteer their time and help those manufacturers who are like, I don't know where to start. I don't know how to flip my manufacturing operation. I don't know if it's worth it to do. How long will I have to do this? How many people would I employ, right? Some of those questions. So that little gap of the network that Point A can bring to the table of people that will come forward and volunteer their time, that's really what we're asking and we're kind of announcing here today is, hey, if you are someone with technical experience and you don't have to know everything about manufacturing to jump on a call and try to help a manufacturer, please, please, please go to 100 Million Mask website and fill out the brand new form that's up there today. And Priya, I'll let you jump in and fill in the blank. It happened so fast.
It happened really fast. And I think that speaks to the power of how we are innovating and how we are coming together to all work on COVID-19 together. We had one conversation, came up with this idea, and it was just a natural fit because from the American Hospitals Association's perspective, we are providing specs and other information to manufacturers, but in the first week we launched, we had 32,000 unique visits to our website. We received over 300 emails. Many of those were from new manufacturers that want to figure this out. They want to be able to help and do their part to support the healthcare workers and hospitals in their community. And they had a lot of questions that we couldn't answer. They had questions around, how do you change your lines over? How long will this take? What spec is the right spec to use? What materials do we need? And we got flooded with questions that we didn't necessarily have answers to or the right people to lead the manufacturers to. So we're super excited to be working with Point A and to be able to build a team of volunteers that will be able to help those manufacturers that have questions.
Love that. I think so. Clearly, we're learning everybody and their brother and sister is using the internet from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern time. But we're all navigating through this. We're all trying to stay connected, and that's so important, which I think Greg's going to touch on in a second.
Well, I think there's two words that we have discussed previously, and in the run up to this show, and just now, and one is trust, right? Priya, you have talked a lot about that, and in order to be able to put together a network that comes together so rapidly and innovates so in such a short time. And Mary Kate, that's the essence. When we met you, which was about a year ago ish, right? That's the essence of what Point A is all about. It's big companies trusting small companies to solve problems together with them and innovate and even disrupt. So I think what we see here is, and look, I was around for 9/11. I was around for 17% interest rates. Now I'm really dating myself. I was a kid then. But, I was around for the fuel shortage. In fact, we talked to somebody the other day who had waited in line for fuel during the oil embargoes of the 70s. And so we've seen these kind of events before. And what you see when things like 9/11 happen is everyone kind of pulls together. And over time, we sort of go our own separate ways, get selfish again, have our, our worldview differences and whatever, but in the end, we're all one. And when we pull together like that, it's very powerful. And what both of you are doing and is part of your sort of life mantra is creating those groups and creating that trust and creating that interconnection always. One thing that I think we'll see come out of this is that companies that had a pre-existing relationship or many pre-existing relationships with people who could help them through this crisis will value it more. And those that didn't prior will hopefully value those kind of relationships, even if not with the same people after this crisis. They'll value those kind of relationships coming out of that to realize that as disruptions occur, and disruptions will continue to occur, you're better off having a network.
Yeah.
Hey, so I want to get Mary Kate to weigh in on what Greg just shared there, the network, the connectivity. But real quick, Daniel Stanton from Twitter, Mr. Supply Chain, which will be involved, I'm sure, National Supply Chain Day. Want to say hello to him. Duria from Point A on Twitter.
The boss is watching, Mary Kate.
That's my boss, guys.
Big fans of Priya. Also, Patricia Burgess on LinkedIn and Diana Chumley on Facebook. Appreciate y'all tuning in and interacting, and hope you're staying safe and sound. So, Mary Kate, back to what Greg was point he was making about being those connectors, helping fuel connectivity, being the bridges that we need between these different groups. Speak to that right quick.
Yeah. Again, this is just like my mantra, right? These connected networks and the difficult times, bringing people together, just being so powerful. And I've probably mentioned this book to you all before. It's Steve Johnson's Where Good Ideas Come From. And I talk about it a lot because it's so relevant in my work, but he really does this very scientific study on where good ideas come from. And it is not just a scientist sitting alone, leaning over, their computer, and they have a eureka moment. That is not where the majority of good ideas come from. It's a setup like a break room, right? Where you're with people you trust, where you can bring forth an idea that's maybe halfway there, right? Or maybe 1/4 there. And so I'm seeing personally and professionally those networks coming together more and more. Me sharing with my best friend a frustration, or just like, hey, this is going on and I can't figure it out. We don't really talk about work that much, right? Usually. And now we're all like, hey, we've got these trusted networks that we believe if we talk about COVID-19 more, we can come to better solutions. So, I just love that book so much because he does a study on, okay, is it individuals or is it markets that bring forward the best ideas? And he's got a quadrant, in the markets that were non-competitive. So in times like this, have by far the most inventions that we use all the time, like MRI, DNA, GPS. Those were all invented in connected networks and not by an individual and not in a competitive environment. So again, encourage people to continue to be part of those networks. I know I'm in this WhatsApp group of people I never met that are like sourcing king and queens, and like I'm learning so much and about how they're buying masks from all these different places. I'm working with AHA, working through the Point A network. Just keep doing that, and efforts that get connected only become stronger.
Yeah. All right. Priya, I want you to weigh in on anything that Mary Kate just said there that might trigger a thought. But before you do, we should say hello to Letty and Charles from Point A, who also are chimed in there on one of the networks.
Priya, your team is behind. I'm just saying.
What the heck?
Team Priya, not so strong right now.
Well, hey, all in good fun. But Priya, on some of these notions, give us your thoughts.
No, I agree with everything that Mary Kate just said. And I think another thing that's really coming out in this time is the need to move quickly on partnership. And I think that having that base of people that are in your network can allow you to move quickly. And quick is, we've been talking about COVID time versus regular time, because right now, everything that we want to do it in a way that will lead to the most benefit to our healthcare workers, to our hospitals, to, really our communities across the country. And so, we are pulling on all the networks. We say regularly, we're pulling on all levers to make sure that we have what we need to fight COVID-19. And I think, from my perspective, seeing those connections between different people, being able to make the connection to Mary Kate and Point A to fill a huge gap in the 100 million mask challenge it's just inspiring to see everyone come together.
Great points. Speaking of making connections, Greg, we've got Kathy Fulton with Allen, which is another great acronym that we love so much. American Logistics Aid Network, a nonprofit that really leverages corporate supply chains for disasters and efforts like we're all involved in now. We got to have you connected with Alan or Kathy Fulton, Mary Kate?
I don't think I have. So I'd love to be connected or reconnected
Definitely. We'll make that happen in the days ahead here. Greg, based on what Mary Kate and Priya were saying and sharing, what sticks out to you?
Well, I mean, it's historic, really. If you think about it, no one person invented the wheel, right? Voltaire and his buddies sat around in Paris in the salons, which was a whole different thing, more of a saloon. Contemplating new structures of political organization. Our friend Danny Longa, who's one of the most prominent AI experts on the planet, has told us that if you want better results and faster growth and more creativity and additional knowledge, you don't throw better brains at a problem, you throw more at a problem, right? You don't need the ultimate algorithm, you need lots of those algorithms. And essentially that's what we're seeing is you want as many people with as many varying points of view, different upbringings and ethnicities and genders and whatever, right? Just every single point of view that you can get is so valuable when you're trying to solve a problem. And that's what is the power of these connected networks.
Great point.
And I think for people is to have people find fewer people like themselves, right? Yeah. And benefit from that. I mean, when you travel around the world, like some of us do quite a bit or have in the past, you see that there are so many points of view that you just can't even contemplate if you remain in your own region or even country of the world.
So especially when we're trying to, I'm going to steal a phrase from you, Priya, when we're trying to solve things on COVID time versus standard time, I think is how you put it, Priya. Because the table stakes with COVID-19, we're not talking about rolling out a new product to maximize revenue. We're talking about literally saving lives, right?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So the faster we can move, the faster we can pour more and more PPE into our healthcare supply chains, the more that we can get ventilators made and out where they need to be. I mean, we're it's not about the financial bottom line. It's about reaching and saving more people, right?
Yeah, it absolutely is. And from an American Hospital Association perspective, the 100 million mask challenge is one piece. It's one lever. There are obviously all of the political and administrative levers that need to be pulled too in Washington, D.C. related to the regulations that are needed to allow some of this quick change and quick work to happen. Obviously, the funding to help support hospitals as they take all of this on. There's so many pieces that need to come together. And just building on what we've been talking about, listening to Greg made me realize that we haven't made yet the point that there are a lot of silos within large organizations as well. And at the AHA, we have so many different silos. We have multiple offices. We have people working in all different aspects, which is how most companies are, right? And we pulled together this cross-association team to take on COVID-19. And so we have people that are representing our policy interests, our lobbying interests, our member assistance perspective, what we're doing around 100 million masks, what we're doing in terms of providing education around CDC guidance and different regulations that are coming out. And so bringing all of those voices together has been really powerful, and it's allowed us to leverage what we can do for hospitals and health systems around the country. And
love that.
Yeah, we joke. I mean, our supply chain expert, his name's Mike Schiller. He leads ARM, and he's been involved in all of this work we're doing on the masks. And we keep joking about how we work in the same building. And once COVID's over, we're so excited that we'll be able to meet and get a drink because we literally talk on the phone all day long, right? And we've never met in person. And it's just been it's been powerful, and it's been energizing for us as a team to be able to really pull on everyone's strength when developing solutions.
So
I love that.
I love that too. I got a quick text from our friend Malcolm. Scott, what the heck do you keep looking at off to your right? I've got several screens here that I'm trying to monitor comments to make it interactive. So thank you, Malcolm, for the text. On that note, our dear friend, Jameen, who, if you're not following him on LinkedIn and Twitter, you need to. He was reiterating the point each of you are making. quote, no great creativity happens in echo chambers. So great point, Jameen, and I love the content you keep pumping out too. Okay, so as we start to wind things down, we want to make sure that our audience knows how to connect with both of you and get involved to whatever extent that they're able to. So Priya, let's start with you.
Yeah, well, find me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to connect and engage in further conversation there. And then, of course, you can go to 100millionmasks.org, and we have a lot of information there and a way to contact. There's not only a form for general questions if you want to be able to help with the 100 Million Mask Challenge, but as of 5 p.m. today Eastern Time, there is also a form if you are an innovator or engineer and you want to help in this collaboration that the AHA is doing with Point A. You can fill out a form and we'll be in touch with how you can help.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
Priya, on behalf of the whole Supply Chain Now team, really appreciate what you and, of course, the AHA team are doing and all of our incredible leaders globally in healthcare. I mean, that's from the bottom of the
initiative. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, Mary Kate, founder of National Supply Chain Day. We're big fans. We're starting the Mary Kate Love and the Point A fan club, but tell us how our listeners can connect.
Yeah, thanks so much for the big setup there. But first, want to +1 to 100millionmasks.org and kind of make sure we call out the innovators and the engineers who can sign up to help out the manufacturers and build on this COVID-19 time, right? If you think you can help, just sign up. You know what I mean? If you've got the time and you think you can help, don't underestimate how much you can help during this time. So first, don't forget to go to 100millionmasks.org. Secondly, you can find me on LinkedIn. I've probably got the easiest name to spell and not misspell of all time, Mary Kate Love, and reach out to me there and we can connect more about any questions you have. And for Point A events, especially like National Supply Chain Day, go to point-a.com and just click events and you'll see the link to the first ever National Supply Chain Day. So if you want to be part of history, go ahead and sign up for that Supply Chain Day.
Oh, that's
There's 44 million of you out there, and we expect to see you all there.
Every single one of you. You know you're not doing anything else, right?
All right. So I hate to wind this conversation down, but big thanks, Mary Kate Love, Program Director for Point A Center for Supply Chain Innovation, and Priya Bathija, Vice President, Strategic Initiatives at the American Hospital Association. Thank you so much to you both for what you're doing and all of your action-based leadership. No lip service leadership here, all about action. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for having us, guys. It's always fun.
You bet.
Yeah.
All right. So, Greg, what a conversation. We couldn't get to everything we wanted to. We did a pretty good job, though.
I think we did a pretty good job. Yeah. They're very organized, like most supply chain people are.
All right. So, Greg, key takeaway or two here.
Yeah. Look, I think that important to understand is that while we're dealing with this present, we are, and there are lots of people out there who are building for the future, right? Mary Kate, first of all, thank you for coming up with National Supply Chain Day. Great idea. And your collaboration with Priya and her team at AHA on the 100 million masks thing. Look, we've got to get through this, and we've got to give our focus to this, but we don't have to give 100% of ourselves to it. Always be looking forward and always be building something for the future. One key suggestion I think we've heard over and over again, and we try to repeat, is learn something from this. Make sure you capture and capitalize on that learning and use it for what inevitably will occur in the future.
Yeah, great point. Good stuff. And I can see that our producer here at Supply Chain Now of our live streams, his nickname is Dog. He has learned that your key takeaways are always hot takes, Greg. I don't know if you noticed that in the label.
I was trying not to look at the scroller. Yeah.
So big thanks to our quarterback that keeps us going. Clay, our producer, and of course Amanda, our chief marketing officer. Okay, we're gonna have to call that kind of wrap up here, big thanks again to Mary Kate and Priya and Greg on behalf of really our entire Supply Chain Now team. To our audience, first off, thanks for tuning in for this conversation. But the message we're trying to pound is, number one, don't panic. Number two, follow all the expert guidelines that your local healthcare entities are sharing. Better days lie ahead, and we look forward to throwing one heck of a party once we break through. So stay safe, everybody. We'll see you next time here on Supply Chain Now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.